Let me preface this just a little by saying that sometime, I don't know the exact date, photographers became preoccupied with speed, meaning how to photograph things which were moving. And the manufacturers, of course, in an effort to help the photographer, came up with what we call high-speed films. Those films which compensate for fast-moving objects, whether it be human beings or automobiles or animals, whatever have you that moves quickly. And in the process, through the use of these high-speed films, public tastes were changed. And where the old emphasis in photography was on perfection, in other words, the group had to be just right, the expressions had to be perfect, the lighting had to be perfect so that all the faces could be seen, a minimum of grain in the picture, these type of things. They tried to achieve perfection. The emphasis became, instead of that, it became expression and realism. And so, instead of making prints to win awards and contests, photographers turned to making pictures which would evoke a response. And at the same time, they created a lack of self-consciousness in the photography. In other words, people were not afraid to be taken or to have pictures taken of them anymore, on this order. And in the same time, the photographer underwent a change. No longer was he the type that stood there with the large powder explosive type light arrangement, and when he pressed the button, it looked like the whole room exploded. He became very mobile. He could take his camera everywhere. And at the same time, manufacturers were helping him by putting out equipment which was small, light, very mobile, which he could take in and shoot in any type of situation, whether a group of people, a darkly lit nightclub, or at the racetrack, wherever. And it got to be a point where he wasn't carrying some large, heavy object. He progressed to the point where he's almost carrying an automatic pistol, because now the cameras that they make today are so quick, or else they can be worked so quickly that he could take pictures in a sequence. And this is where we get the term shoot and load, because you load the film and shoot just as quick as you can press the lever and advance the film. And this is also how he changed. He became a part of the scene. He moved in quietly and became a part of the scene that he was taking, and his photography reflected this. One of the techniques that developed out of this new role of the photographer is what we call available light. This is what I'm going to try to talk about a little bit today. And it is defined just exactly as the term state, available light. You are shooting, or you are taking pictures with a camera, and depending only on the natural light or the light which is available around you. You do not have any synthetic type flashes, or either electronically or bulb types. Only with what is around you. And you can achieve this new feeling, or this new, it's really not new, but it's something which is new to yearbooks. This new idea in photography, in other words, having pictures which are a part of your classroom scenes, a part of your sports scenes, a part of your faculty or academic, or part of organizations, or your opening section, trying to convey the feeling or the mood of your school. You can capture these moods and etc. by using available light photography. There are a couple rules, though, that you can follow to help yourself, and it isn't necessary that we have a professional photographer come in, because just about anybody who knows how, really, it's not even that technical, anybody that has an interest in it and wants to take it up, it's just a matter of putting the film in, advancing the film, pressing the shutter and releasing the shutter and taking the picture, and that's it. And you can always have your film processed somewhere else. But I mean, basically the technique is simple. But one of the first rules is to know your tools. And you have three tools: your camera, the light which you are working with, and your film. Now the camera, this is the reason why I have these up here, because there are three basic types and they're classified according to the film size that they use. These smaller cameras, this one is a Minolta and this one is a Canon Flex. Both of them are what we call single lens reflex. In other words, when you look through the viewfinder, you see through the lens. Are 35 millimeter, because the film that they use is 35 millimeter. And you've probably seen these type of negatives. They're the smallest type of film. They're the type that go in slides. The film measures about an inch in height and an inch and a half wide. The other format is what we call a 2 1/4 format. In other words, 2 1/4 inches square. And there are 3 or 4 different brands, but the major ones are a Rolleiflex and a Did you believe that was worth about $300? These are the two major types of 2 1/4 or square type formats. And this is basically the main type of camera that is used in yearbook photography. Maybe not at your school, but most of the schools that are working with available light will try to work with these two types of cameras. The reason being is the size of the negative. Like I said, 2 1/4 square, and you've got a format that you can enlarge to 8 by 10 size. Now when you work with the smaller type of 35 millimeter, one of the drawbacks is that the negative is so small, and the image on the negative is going to be smaller than you would find it on a 2 1/4. And so when you go to enlarge it, your image isn't necessarily going to be as large as you would find in a print made from one of these. And there's also a difficulty working with the negatives. They scratch very easily, they're delicate. And they seem to gather dust more rapidly, or they have more affinity to dust. And so when you take a 35 millimeter negative and blow it up, you have these large spots or streaks on your 8 by 10 pictures, which is caused by the dust or the scratches. But here, with the 2 1/4, you alleviate this somewhat, because you're working with a bigger image. And with care, though, with how you handle your negatives, you shouldn't have too much trouble in trying to eliminate spots and scratches and dust. The Mamiya is a particular interest, or the Mamiya, however you want to pronounce it, is a particular interest because it is the only one of the 2 1/4 size that takes interchangeable lenses. And it's possible for you, if you can afford it in your particular school situation, to buy a Mamiya and also 3 lenses. 65 millimeter, which is a wide angle, an 80 millimeter, which is the regular size lens, or the regular lens, and the 180 millimeter, which is a telephoto lens. So with one camera, you can interchange 3 different types of lenses, which will, for 90% of your work, do you in good stead. And the fourth size, of which about 10% of the work is done, this is what you will usually see your professional photographer using, is what we call a 4x5. And it takes a large sheet type negative, about this size. It takes a film holder, and the film holder sits in a mat, like so. And like I said, your professional photographer uses these. This is the largest film format not the largest you'll find, but the largest that he will use, because with group pictures, when he has 10 to 20 or 30 in a group, which isn't necessarily good practice with 30, but if he has 10 or 20 in a group, he can get good pictures because the images are going to be large enough and the head size won't be too small in the prints. So if you are in the process of trying to simplify your darkroom procedure or something on this order, or trying to find some type of camera equipment, I would recommend the Mamiya with the three interchangeable lenses. The 35 millimeters will range anywhere from, good ones will range anywhere from $75 to $150. Now you can get better ones than this. I myself use one. I wish I would have dropped that instead of that lens. That is true. My own camera sells for about $230. And most professionals will range anywhere from $200 to $600 for a 35mm camera if they want to do good work. But expect to put out money for cameras. I mean, all Americans have one thing in common, that's good photography. And so you have to pay for it. Not necessarily the processing of the prints, but the initial outlay for equipment. And you can get a good 35mm for anywhere between $75 and $150. The 2 1/4, the middle size of the mile, run anywhere from $150 to $300. And somewhere in there is just the camera alone, without the lens. You pay for your lenses, close to $200 a piece. So if you have a camera body, which is from $150 to $200, and then 3 lenses, which is about $169 to $199, you've got $600 for lenses and $150 for a camera. So right there is $750. And the 4x5, the large size, will run from $200 on up. Now, if your advisor is alert enough and he has not necessarily some connections but knows somebody at a camera store, you can pick up these cameras used. And here's a good way to pick up a lot of good equipment, because every profession has its nuts, and so does photography. And we have some people in photography who use a camera for 6 months and become disenchanted very quickly and will just trade it in on something else. Take a great loss, but think they're getting something better because either the rangefinder didn't suit them or the film advance didn't suit them. And so they'll trade in these cameras, and the camera dealers will sell them at a reasonable price. And you can pick up relatively good cameras, relatively new cameras, at a lower than average cost. Once you have your cameras, the next thing to do is practice. Practice. Learn how to load it. Become aware of it. Get the feel of the camera. Make it almost a part of your hand. Take as much opportunity to shoot as possible. One of the things that, become acquainted with your situation when you're using this camera. One of the things that we always try to do up north is to walk into a situation and sort of case the joint, so to speak. If we shoot a wedding or something, we go in the night before rehearsal. This is the profession. At school, if we have a play coming up or some type of program, we try to go into a dress rehearsal and either shoot pictures or else sit around and get the feel of the particular event that you're going to be shooting. This way you can tell when the high spots of the evening come and you're just not caught flat-footed and at the same time being entertained. Because one of the major things with photographers is that they get so involved with what's going on, they forget about taking pictures. And so, for instance, my sports photographers, and this is one of the hardest things, especially for high school kids, because they're all go team and all this other stuff, and they're on the sidelines watching, and they get so involved in the action, the camera droops down to their side, and the play is going right by them, and they got a beautiful chance to catch it, one of the few chances probably for the whole day or the whole evening, and they're just sitting there watching it and just jumping up and down, screaming and shouting, and there goes the picture right by them. There's no other way you can get it. They won't run that play over, friends. They only do it once. So you have to be alert. Your light. Get to know those lighting techniques which will be of value to you. One of the good ways to do this, one of the ways that was suggested in Scholastic Editor was to go through the different places in your school building. And at the same time, you can practice with your camera, but take shots under varying light conditions and keep a notebook on it. And this way, you have this instant recall type of thing. And if you have to go shoot a picture in the gym, you can go right down there, you know automatically what light exposure or what exposure you should set your camera at, what lens opening. See? In the office, the same way. In the classrooms, most classrooms have the same amount of light in all school buildings, just about. Now, this was based on tests which were done by a photographer by the name of Irving Lloyd. And he shot many rolls of film in many schools. And most schools throughout the country have to have lighting according to a set standard by the particular state or by the National Education Association or something. But they all have about the same type of lighting. And he found that if he went in with this camera and set it at f/35 at 1/60th of a second, in most instances he could take care of every situation that would come up as far as shooting pictures in the school environment. And so basically, if you have cameras and your photographers aren't getting out to get the pictures, then go ahead, put it at f/35 and 1/60th and with a fast film like Tri-X and see what happens. But of course, the best thing to do is always take a light meter. And a light meter is this little instrument. And all it does is measure the light. Very simple. But at the same time, as you find your ratio on this light scale, it tells you where to set your lens on your camera and at what speed. And this is the ultimate value. You don't have to do any figuring, or you don't have to figure out any ratio, x over y equals z, none of this type of thing. Camera, the light meter, takes care of everything for you. Next, get to know your film. And along with this goes the procedure of simplifying your technique or your process. If you're going to be a photographer or you have a photographer and he seems to know so much and yet he doesn't seem to be getting anything done, maybe one of his problems is that he has too many techniques. In other words, he's trying to use too many films and he's got 8 cameras. And so when he goes on a job, he's lugging 8 cameras, 6 different types of film, and then when he comes back, he's got 12 different type of developers, and he doesn't know which film he shot at which speed to put in which developer, and so you end up with nothing. So simplify the process. Use one type of film, and one film will suffice as long as you, as far as all 3 cameras are concerned. Use one major type of developer, either UFG or Acufine, for instance. And the same thing in the dark room. Simplify your procedure by using paper chemicals, one specific type for all the major ways that you produce pictures. Once you've got this done, this relieves the pressure of having to try too many techniques, and it lets you become a better photographer because you get to know your own equipment, your own film. Once you have succeeded in taking pictures, and if you don't do this, this is something you might want to take back, try to make your photographer give you contact prints. In other words, you'll put 3 strips of film, for instance, or whatever, 5 or 6 strips of film, depending on what side of the film you have, onto a piece of paper. They will expose it, take off the film, develop it, and here you'll have a little 8 by 10 sheet of paper with all the pictures you took on one roll of film. And from there, all you have to do is just go down and circle which ones you want, or which parts of pictures you want. So you should keep this in mind. This way it'll keep him organized, and everything that he shoots, you can keep track of. This way that if there's any, sometimes you don't use the entire picture, and parts of pictures are very important. And you don't really realize this if he's only making those good ones, because sometimes photographers are vain enough that they only want you to see the good stuff that they shoot. But sometimes the bad stuff, or parts of it, is good too. So make use of these contact prints. Now, dealing with technique, how do we go out and how do we get these close-up type pictures? These which are the most expressive. What are some of the ways that we can encompass this technique? One of the things is to seek simplicity. Move in close, and at the same time you'll cut out all extraneous material. In other words, all that you don't want. Limit your pictures to 4 or 5 people. Don't get any larger. Leave the large groups for the professional photographer. If you go any larger, you're going to have a technical problem of size. In other words, the head sizes are going to be too small when you make a print. One of the things you're trying to do is sell yearbooks, and you're trying to interest the reader and help the reader to identify himself. With head sizes too small, he can't do this, can he? And at the same time, too many pictures or too many faces in a picture loses the emphasis of the picture. People become more involved with who's in the picture than what's going on in the picture. And you're trying to sell a particular organization or an idea of some kind. So don't detract from your own purpose. Keep it simple. Make sure that your props are easily understood. Make sure that your props are easily understood. A picture where you have a student sitting and looking out into the sky with some, type of expression on his face with no props doesn't help us, does it? Especially if it's in the English section or that part of the classroom section. It doesn't tell us anything, does it? It could be used in any section or any part of your classroom section. So use props, which can be easily understood. Use props. Use those parts, those tools, which are a part of that particular classroom situation. Hold your camera steady. When you are shooting at 1/60th of a second, if you are, this is one of the major problems. Now, anywhere from 1/25th of a second and faster, the camera or the film compensates for your nervous twitches. Everybody shakes a little. And in that speed from 125 on higher, or up higher, the camera or the film compensates for it to a certain extent. Don't go like this. No, it won't compensate for it. But just standing there, holding the camera, as you would, the film will compensate for it. And please don't get stiff. Don't go. Because you automatically shake, don't you, when you do that? You automatically start to tremble. And this is something that you don't want in your picture because it makes the picture fuzzy. Not the tremble, but the fact that you do makes the camera jump and it makes the picture fuzzy. Hold it steady but relax. Hold your breath when you take the picture. That's one technique to stop the nervousness. Take the camera and put it against something, and at the same time you'll be doing unusual angles, which is another aspect to this. But place it against something. This will help to keep it from shaking. On the floor, on the desk. Do you have any desk level shots of your kids in school? How about from the floor? Just put the camera right on the floor. I mean, you're going to look kind of funny, I know, down on the floor, but your main objective is good pictures. And so, for the most part, go to whatever means you have to get good pictures. Part of your body. Hold it up against a part of your body if you can, if you're crouched, for instance, or if you're in some type of a stance. Put it on your, balance it on your knee as long as you're not shaking too much. There are many ways you can get away from this, because this is what causes fuzzy picture. And if you're a snapshot fan, and you always wonder why your pictures aren't clear, that's the reason. Because what you're doing is the one you're saying, smile, click, at the same time you're moving the camera. So this is one of the major faults of people who take snapshot pictures. When all you have to do is just smile, and then gently squeeze the shutter release. So, and hold that camera there, and you get sharp and clear pictures. And the same thing with these cameras. You can hold your breath, and at the same time, gently press that shutter release. This will eliminate, I think, or I hope, part of this problem. It's necessary that you do this because if you're shooting at 1/60th, like I said, 1/25th of a second is a lot faster than 1/60th. And in a range from 1/15th of a second to 1/60th, it takes concentration and a little technique to keep that camera steady. If you go below 1/15th of a second, in other words, keep the shutter open longer, in other words, expose it for a minute or a tenth of a second or something on this order, then you had better put on a tripod because you're too human. And there's nothing that you can do to help to stop from causing this problem. All right, place your subjects in context. In other words, if they are English class or language class, place them in their element. Maybe a shot in the library might help doing research. Shot in the language labs. Don't take a picture of gym kids in the office. It's a little illogical. Get them with the tools that they're working with. In other words, if they are playing basketball or volleyball, this type of thing. Make sure that you keep them in context. And back to your group shots again, keep their heads tight and together and relate them to one another. Don't have 3 people looking at a piece of paper and the next guy going like this. This detracts from the picture. You lose reader interest. They're more interested in what this one fink is doing out here on the side when these other 3 people are all posed and looking at some particular object or piece of paper or something. Another point is to seek realism. And we can achieve this in the following method. A, or 1 or something, know when the action takes place. Like I said before, one of the techniques for plays and stuff is to go to dress rehearsal. Now you can take your camera too. Doesn't mean you just go and watch, because a lot of times you can get a lot of helter-skelter backstage activity, more than you find on the regular night, possibly. More informal attitude. This type of thing adds for informality as far as your pictures are concerned. Same thing in sports. This is a particular problem in sports. Know when and where your action takes place. If you're shooting football, be on the sidelines or in the end zone, not in the stands with your girl. You're not going to get any action shots that way. And if you're shooting track, there'll be a little action, but not particularly in the action pictures. If you're taking track pictures, get at the finish line where you see this last moment exertion for the tape instead of at the starting block. Don't be left behind, as the old saying goes. Back in the classroom, move freely through the room. Don't be afraid to walk around in the classroom. Now, you'll probably be a little self-conscious because of the teacher, in fact, and kids will be looking at you. But if you walk in, find a point and walk there and stop. Their eyes will follow you that far. And then just sit there for about 2 or 3 minutes. Don't go in and expect to take a picture in 30 seconds. You'll never do it. Sit there for a couple of minutes until they get used to you. And they will, after they quit giggling, or else the teacher gets mad. Make sure you notify her first, though, that you're coming, or him first. Make sure that they know that you're coming. And after the novelty of the whole situation is worn off, then you can go about taking your pictures and move about freely. Now, if you want close-ups, of course, if you're shooting with the Mamiya or the Mamiya, you can use the 180 telephoto lens. But stay toward the front of the room if you possibly can, unless there's something going on in the back, like lab work or something for chemistry classes. Because you want to stay in front or on the side of your subject. What mood do you get from the back of a head? Do you get any? No, you really don't. See, so you want to keep those spaces. This is what sells the book. You want to keep those spaces out in front. Sometimes you'll find people won't stop laughing with a smile, or they'll break an expression because they know that you're there. And you're poised and ready to shoot the picture, and all of a sudden they'll be concentrating to go. Absolutely revolting. And you've wasted 10 minutes looking for somebody that was very expressive, and you had it, and she knew it all the time, or he knew all the time. They just turn around and smile at you. What do? You have to use a little quick action here. If you know your basic distance from that person to your camera, focus on somebody else that's at an equal distance but in the opposite direction. But at the same time, keep looking at that person and see if you get that particular type of expression. Focus the same distance. And then when you see that, they're not aware of it, they go, click. See? You got the basic distance. The focus won't be any problem because you've already focused it on something the same area or the same distance away, and so you can catch her completely off guard and probably with some facial expression that she'll just die when she sees it. But anyway, you can turn around and get that picture right away. Again, closed action with telephoto. In other words, if you see somebody that's very, well, if you're in a classroom situation with a telephoto, you're going to have to be shooting close to the back row anyway, even though you're standing in the front of the room, because the telephoto is powerful enough that you can grab these expressions back, or grab these expressions and put them on film. And then again, look for faces and expression. Things like, look for faces and expressions. Intensity. Boredom. Absorption. Enthusiasm. Nervousness and detachment. These are the type of things that you want to try and record on film. Another aspect is to look for that unusual and interesting angle. I mean, it's just not enough that you sit there and take a picture and always the same. You can go through your book. Go through your book sometime when you get back to school, whenever it is. Thumb through the pages and see the angles on the pictures. A lot of times you'll find that they're shot the same way, straight on. Forget it, friends. We're going to be here until I stop. Shoot straight on. See? That threw me off. Most of the pictures you'll probably find are shot straight on. And what you want to do is vary this a little. Shoot from the floor. Shoot from above. Shoot from the side. Many angles involved. Shoot through doorways. Through glass windows if you have them. See? And this way you can vary this aspect of always shooting straight on. And again, focus carefully. One way to do this is to pick a part of the face. Not pick apart the face, but pick a part of the face on which to focus. In other words, the eye, or the ear lobe, or part of the ear, or maybe the outline of the nose if you have a split image type rangefinder. Because if you just try to focus on a face when you're shooting at 1/60th, you'll find that the nose will be in focus, but the ears will be out of focus. I mean, and it's really funny. You can't even tell he's got ears. They look like just two cauliflower types. So focus on something in the center of the face, from the back of the head to the nose. Try to focus on something in the center, which would be mouth, eyes, ears, and this way you'll have sharp pictures. Pick something small on that face, not real small, but something which you can or something that looks like it's in. Use something that you can tell when it's in focus. And again, hold your breath and squeeze that shutter. And try and adapt to as many light conditions as possible. Learn to shoot underneath the lights in the classroom. One of the toughest things to do for a photographer, you start taking action pictures, is shoot pictures of dance. For some reason, you guys despise the light that dances. And you've got lights, but they're shrouded with red, green, blue type effect. And a photographer trying to look in the camera, trying to focus on something, can't do it because there's just not enough light to focus on. But and I really can't tell you a technique. Everybody's got his own method. You try to focus outlines, or you take a flash picture, you try to set the distance 15 feet, and when somebody comes in that area, you take a picture. Everybody has his own method. But get used to shooting in this type of thing. This will help you to become aware of all your different type light situations. Don't point your camera toward the windows, please. This is one of the don'ts. Especially in available light photography. With a flash photography, you can compensate for backlighting by using the flash. But if you are shooting two girls like in the front row here, and the windows are in the background, that light overpowers the light which is involved with helping you to show the girls' faces. In other words, these foregrounds become underexposed. There's just not enough light because the backlight overshadows it. And so get that light either on the side of you or in back of you. A lot of times, though, you might find that it might be of value, particularly with a silhouette type shot. You've seen this, where you have two forms that are silhouetted by the light. And I mean, now here's the special effect where you would want to do this. But in most of your basic photography, when you're shooting in the classroom, and you have a kid working on dissecting a worm in biology class or something, or you have somebody writing a theme in English, if you have the windows, if you shoot toward the windows, of course, you won't be able to see what they're doing when you make up the print. And this is you don't want this particularly in your book, I know. Now a little bit about coverage. What to look for instance, when you want your opening. What type of pictures do you want? Of course you want mood pictures sometimes. Other times you don't. You just take the regular part of really good pictures of classroom action or good sports pictures and interweave this with your opening section. But sometimes you want good mood pictures, and it takes a while to get them. You have to become familiar with who you're working with or what you're working with. And the same thing goes with faculty pictures. If you want to typify that person, you'll have to learn to study people. Or if you want to typify an emotion, you'll have to learn to study people and find out how they react to different situations, like your principal. I mean, how do you take an informal shot of your principal? Because most of the time you say, well, look, Mr. Smith, I'd like to take a picture of you. Well, that right away he assumes the pose, and he gets rigid, or else he'll say, well, let me comb my hair first or fix my tie, see? Which is what you want him to do anyway, probably. But get used to watch him once in a while if you see him around. What habits or what things does he do that typifies him or sets him apart from the rest of the people? Or poses, watch for the poses which you get to know him for. Like ours, he always goes like this type of thing. And that's how everybody recognizes him. It's that type. And our guidance counselor is a little bit large, and he's always, standing kind of like this type of thing, and he's, kind of hangs over. I mean, these are the poses that you are most familiar with. This is how you know these people. But you can't just go in and shoot it and say, well, look, here it is, and just take 5 or 6 or 8. You can't do it that way. You have to watch them for a while. And the same thing with some of your kids in class. See how they react a little bit. Get used to the surroundings so that your picture will be a part of the surroundings. Here's this Broad Ripple book. There's a little story involved with this one picture here I thought was interesting. Here you've got a theme idea or a theme picture of a girl with hands outstretched, supposedly in the rain. Now this presents a problem because the photographer can't take the camera out in the rain because the lens gets wet and this will appear on the negative, and so you'll have water drops on your pictures when you make the prints on your negative. And so now this is the story that I heard about this. This was done by a student photographer, a couple of student photographers. They tried to pour water on her in school, but they found out that the water ran off of her too fast, and they couldn't capture the drops on her forehead, of which there are some. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't back there. And so what they finally had to do was put Vaseline on her face, and then drop the water on, and this kept the drops sort of on her face, and they didn't run off as quickly. And they were able to achieve the effect that they were looking for. I mean, there's technical problems that are involved with these moon type shots, and here's a good example. But they finally did achieve it. This is the type of thing that you might get involved in sometimes. Again, your faculty in your classroom are about the same way. In other words, be aware of the situation. Get to know your teachers. Go to those places or try to typify them in the places where they are known in the classroom. Get them emphasizing points, etc. In the hallway, talking to other teachers. In other words, go to their environment to get the pictures of them that you want. Activities. One of the best tips I can give you about shooting activities is to shoot as much as possible. Don't be afraid to waste film. But when I say waste, I don't mean to throw it in a garbage can, which in effect is what you're doing if you just go out and say, look, here's 6 rolls of film. Go crazy, baby. No. Don't do that, because the photographer with no purpose in mind will go through and waste 3 rolls of film. Give him a purpose. Give that photographer a purpose. Tell him, oh, I want a picture of the homecoming dance or the homecoming, just plain homecoming, and give him 6 or 8 rolls of film. But make sure that he shoots every aspect and doesn't stop shooting. As the parade goes by, he better just be taking him just 680, boy. Because if he's standing there and a parade's going by, you might as well forget it. You won't have any parade in your book. So it's important that you give these fellas leeway, a little leeway, so that they can try to cover the event as much as possible, and let them cover every aspect of it. It might take more than one roll of film, but as long as you get the pictures that you need, that's all that's important. Sometimes I know myself, I'll shoot rolls of film, and I only get 2 or 3 pictures off a roll. That seems like a terrible waste, but I'm getting the pictures that I need. And this is the way it'll be sometimes for your photographers. Mr. Henderson was talking the other day that Hartford City was the first school, or the Hartford City High School was the first school to have pictures, or the first school to have an all-night prom. And so they called in Life magazine. And the photographers came down and they shot 300 rolls of film all night. How many photographers did they have? 2, 3? 2 photographers shot 300 rolls of film. That's why I shoot in a year. These guys shot 300 rolls of film in one night, or 300 feet of film. 300 rolls of film in one night. And then on top of that, it didn't even appear in a book. It never came out in Look or Life. And so they wrote to find out what was wrong, and they said they didn't shoot enough. Of course, Look and Life can afford 300 a night. You possibly, maybe 1 to 300 a year. Sports pictures always pose a problem. Getting that action shot. And it goes more than just the sport itself. It goes deeper than that, trying to convey the impression of the sport. A good cross-country picture is always after the race is over. And the fella's over the car or whatever, he's over, ready to I think you get the point. Or when he comes through the finish line, and after he just comes through and he starts gasping for air, you get this type of thing, very expressive. Same thing in track after the race is over. Football, of course, always a problem. Now, if you're in the afternoon, then you're all set. If your games are played in the afternoon, then you're fine. Because with a telephoto lens, you can get to the middle of the field and probably have some of the most beautiful action pictures of anybody in the whole country. But if your games are at night, you have a problem. And we can shoot rolls and rolls and rolls of film, but every season we only have about 10, maybe not even that many, action shots to work with. We try to put in our section, which is 6 pages. And it presents a problem. Because it's night, and available light can be done at night with fast film, and if you push the exposure and double rate it and double develop it, or double the time on it, you can do it. But they're still fuzzy. But with the electronic flash, of course, you get your best pictures. But the technique is to set your focus at 15 feet This is what I would suggest, 15 feet, because your strobe, as much as you might like to think, will not shoot entirely across the field if you're on the sidelines, which is 50 yards, I think. And it won't, and it for certain won't shoot 100 yards, or it won't cover a 100-yard area straight down if you're in the end zone. So preset that focus at 15 feet, stand at a yard marker, or 15 feet, and come away 15 feet from a yard marker, like 30-yard line or something like this. Set the focus, and then anywhere in that radius, as long as it's 15 feet, shoot anything that comes in at 15 feet. But watch out, please. This is dangerous. I've seen a couple of photographers get run over. Because, a lot of kids, when they play football, they don't like to tackle, so they push them out of bounds. And who's there? A photographer. This type of thing. And I've seen a couple get run over. And if it isn't that, whatever you do, don't get caught in between the chain marker guys. Because when the action comes to an end, the first thing they do is drop the chain into the poles. And you end up waiting, and all of a sudden, on the head. This type of thing. Now this has happened. I've seen this happen. Or else you turn around, and these guys try to move, and they pull up the stakes, and they're both going opposite direction, and the chain goes zing, you turn around and over the chain. I mean, it's like it's just like an old-time movie. It really is, but when the action comes at you, everybody scatters. And brother, you better have a path out, or else you're going to get caught in between. Basketball, either on the sidelines, not in the stands, please. Halfway between the sideline and the basket. I like to get underneath the basket about 10 feet, 15 feet at an angle, and focus on the rim, and sit on the floor. I look kind of stupid down there, I realize, but I'm getting the pictures. This type. See? I was sitting on the floor when that happened. That's it. Or you can be standing, whichever you want to do it, in between or else underneath the basket. Track the same way, like I said before, at the finish line. The broad jump pit. Here are some good examples from the Kodak display. You might have seen these already. These pictures tell you where to stand. Now this one, it's a study of a contrast, and it's telling how they overdeveloped the print. But he had the right idea. Well, of course he did. It won a prize. But I mean, it shows you where to stand when you want a picture of the fellow going over the broad jump bar, or excuse me, the high jump bar. See? You stand behind it. You stand behind it. The bar, that is, not the athlete. Because you'll get facial expression. You can't see it here, like I said, because this is a special effect. You get the facial expression, and you get the this muscle tone quality where you see him straining and exerting effort. This is what you're trying to capture on film. Here's a baseball shot. We usually, like Mr. Henderson says, one of the best things to do is use a telephoto. We'll stay between the third base line and home plate. Try to get right in the middle, and we'll focus on home plate and focus on third base. And that way you can go either or, whichever way the action goes. See? Sometimes you can stay behind the first baseline. This is a typical shot. A lot of people say, oh, this is a dead way to do it. I mean, it's been overused. Well, you'll have to adjust that to your situation. You've never had that picture in your book before. This might be a way to do it. Here's a picture of a fellow in the broad jump pit. See what makes that a good picture? Standing right to focusing at the board when he just takes off, or else after he enters a pit. Or else you can stand almost in the pit and catch him in the air coming at you. I said almost in the pit, I didn't say in the pit. I mean, you look kind of funny with two shoes full of spikes in you. On your head. You'll have more holes than you think. Here's a good shot for golf. Coming out of a sand trap. Most people will just pose one off a tee or something, or have a couple boys washing one of the golf balls. We do that all the time. This gave me an idea I never thought of this before. Through the sand trap. And here's one that conveys the feeling of athletics, but doesn't necessarily have to be an action shot. Now you can't see this. Well, you can for the most of you can, but what it is a locker room shot. You can see the lockers, and the background is a mirror. But in the mirror are three kids working on something. See? And he has taken this unusual angle, shooting this through the mirror. And yet he still conveys the idea of the locker room and athletics, etc. This is probably for a gym class. They're waiting for the bell to ring. Here's a good example of an unusual angle. I mean, you won't have an opportunity to use anybody shooting marbles in your book. But it's an idea of an unusual angle. Right down there where he's playing, right on the ground. He held, whoever it was, held the camera right on the ground and took this picture. It did not necessarily have to be done for sports. You can do it for other things, for activity shots too. See? That's basically it as far as sports are concerned. Always remember one thing though. Make sure that you get at least 2 different angles when you shoot. This is the basic thing that I was trying to get at. Find a couple of places and shoot from those angles. Don't have all your pictures taken from the same place. See? Now we better get cutting here because I won't have a chance to show you these others. But I want to point out 2 books to conclude this. You got to think about Sweeney and Atlantis all over. One is called Yearbook Photojournalism by Irving Lloyd. These books are both by Irving Lloyd, and he is one of the founders, so to speak, of the available light technique for high school yearbooks. The first one is Yearbook Photojournalism, and I think it's published by Taylor Publishing Company. There's very little copy, friends, and the purpose of the book is to go through and to give as many interesting angles and aspects of yearbook photography as possible. Now, in this book, he uses a lot of color ideas, but all it is just chock full of good little ideas for taking all types of yearbook photography. And he goes through and covers every aspect, from the cafeteria to the school bus in the morning, everything. Faculty, the whole works. Just pictures and pages and pages of pictures covering every aspect. And so if you feel that you're a little bit lacking in the photography, creativity in the photography end, maybe you might want to purchase this particular book. And the same thing with the other one. It's called Creative School Photography. It is also by Irving Lloyd, and you can obtain it through NSPA, National Press Association. Sells for $12. Important, yes. But boy, you'll get your $12 worth of ideas out of here. In fact, it's worth more like $1,200. We've used it quite a few times. And when photographers go for a while, they tend to get stale for ideas. All they have to do is pick up this book time after time after time after time, and go through it and thumb through it and refresh their memories, and gives them a whole wealth of ideas. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'll leave you in the residence hall. Anything else?
One announcement. There are some changes in the room for the morning classes today.